see life different, authentic, so magnetic. I'm out for connection. The world seems fake, but life is just so damn alive. This is no depression. If I'm cryptic, it's for your own protection, no secrets. I can tell you about the hidden message. Hello everyone, welcome to This Week in Tyranny. It's the most hardcore news show on earth, finally back to our regular scheduled programming. I am your host Conrad Rogas, welcoming you to episode 89. It's August 18, 2024. Feels like I'm doing episode 1 again because I've gotten so far into the self and talking about psychology. It's almost become a whole nother show. So kind of going back to my bread and butter here, we're going to talk about actual tyranny, things that are going on in the daily world, because I keep going back and forth on this, but both of them are as important as the other. You need to be in the world and realize what's going on, but of course it doesn't matter unless you are in touch with yourself, living in the present moment. So here we go. No Starbucks endorsements, but it is what it is. What happened this week? Vice President Kamala Harris on Friday unveiled a proposed ban on price gouging in the grocery and food industries. Quoting from an article, if elected, she would push for the first ever federal ban on food price hikes, with sweeping new powers for federal authorities. Also, this included lower prescription drug and housing costs. So, just to be clear, we're talking about first time ever in U.S. history, price controls. The government is setting the price, telling someone who sells they cannot sell over this amount, or they got jail time, basically, right? It'll be a fine, but of course if you don't pay a fine, it's jail time. So that is what we're talking about here. This is if elected, right? This can happen. Harris is attempting to respond to intense voter frustration over rising prices, particularly grocery prices. Her plan will include the first ever federal ban on price gouging on food and groceries, setting clear rules of the road to make clear that big corporations can't unfairly exploit consumers to run up excessive corporate profits on food and groceries, the campaign said in the statement. And even this article, it points out they did not define price gouging and they did not define excessive profits. How much profit is excessive? This surprises no one, doesn't surprise me. Of course they're not defined. Any violence or tyranny can never clearly define their terms, their violence. If they do define it, then it won't last. For someone to brutally rule over you, whatever laws will be imposed on you, if they were objectively applied, they would also be breaking those laws, right? So, of course, they're not going to be defined because the name of the game is selective enforcement, on a whim enforcement, not rigid objective enforcement, okay? That's why in 1984, in the first chapter, it says, where he opens up a diary, because it's illegal to basically write your thoughts. It's illegal to have thoughts. But then the narrator says it's not illegal, of course, because there are no more laws. And that's how it goes in actual tyranny and in communism. It's not that it will be against the law. It's that you will question yourself, even though it's not written anywhere. You hold yourself back. That's how it goes, right? This is how it goes in abusive relationships. I keep going back to it. I think it totally applies here. The name of the game for an abuser is not that they have to keep somebody on a rope or on a chain in the house. They want to be able to walk with them freely and do it as if they want to do it, but they will be the ones policing themselves, the victim. So I've said that, but here's the danger here with her plan, right? Her plan if president. It's not her actually winning the presidency and implementing this. That's not the threat. That's not going to happen, okay? The danger here is that you have now open, blatant communist methodology presented by a U.S. presidential candidate. That means that those viewpoints, it's telling you that those viewpoints, they're widespread enough, they're accepted enough to be allowed into the public sphere, into public discussion. And I do mean allowed. Remember, an election is not a contest between two individuals who come from a sincere place and meet to see who has better ideas. It's much more so a show on a stage, put on by complex yet simple and ancient network of people. The same people that used to just rule because they were the landlords, they're ruling now. It's still the same network. The power and control has never been in the hands of the people. That's just the way it is. This is a group of people who stand above the masses because of those who wield more knowledge, more power, more influence than the general public. They're the groups of people inside that network that they groom, they promote, and they maneuver these political figures into prominence. They create them, they push them. So the reason this is alarming is because it means that we are close enough to actual support by Americans for price controls in America that we now have a mainstream candidate who can say this and still have the support of the party. Because anybody could say anything, but if their ideas are extreme enough, they will get pushed away. And we've got a mainstream candidate doing that, not a third one like Bernie Sanders. One of the two candidates is putting out actual Stalinist rhetoric. Okay, so we got that. Now, here's the next issue. In this theater play, we know it isn't important who the actors actually are, like who Kamala Harris, the person, who Donald Trump, the person, actually is. That's not important. We don't all know that. I know that. I'm trying to get people to know that. It doesn't matter where their allegiances lie. What's important is what the characters embody and represent. Again, it's characters. Think of it as characters. Think of it as figures in a play that represent things through symbols, right? Through plot. So her opponent here, Donald Trump, he has a complete layup here. She's given him a total layup. He should be slam dunking on her right now, like if they're playing basketball. What's happening is, by putting out this completely crazy executive overreach totalitarian power grab, what she's doing essentially is she's positioning herself directly under the net without the ball, defending Donald Trump, and he's dribbling up with the ball. So she's like ready right there for a slam dunk right in her face. Ball goes in her face, she falls over. Then, he stands over her, beats his chest or whatever. They take pictures. Like that is the epic setup that is being created here through the craziness that price controls are. And remember, I'm not talking personal, right? I don't like either of these people. I don't even hate either of these people. We're talking about actors playing a role. And this character here, Kamala Harris, the candidate, needs to be totally shamed and exposed for espousing this garbage. That's what needs to happen in this story. But instead, our main character blows it. He blows it. He lets the opportunity go. He takes a jump shot from the free throw line. Okay? So what if he makes the shot, right? So what if he scores the point? There was a moment to be had here, and it didn't happen. So here's what he says about this. Quoting Donald Trump, in her speech yesterday, Kamala went full communist, he said. Comrade Kamala announced that she wants to institute socialist price controls. You saw that never worked before. It will cause rationing, hunger, and skyrocketing prices. Okay, that's true. I read this, I think, very good. Short of profound, of course, it should be better. Like, we don't get, what right does any human being have to judge the worth of another's livelihood? That is a great quote. That actually is thought-provoking, right? That gets at the root of things. But we never get that, and that's my point. This is we never get the slam dunk. These guys aren't playing above the rim. So, but besides that, like, what are the causes? He addresses this. He doesn't talk about causes. Donald Trump at a different point has said, you're paying the price for liberal extremism at the gas pump, at the grocery counter, and on your mortgage bill, Trump said in Asheville. That was recently. So he, like other conservatives, they've blamed liberal inflationary policies, right? We all know what they are: bad trade deals, funding for all these federal organizations, foreign aid, just handing out money, what they call handouts and welfare. And while all of those are factors, all of them, they are nowhere near the origin of why we're actually in economic decline. It was predetermined years ahead by central banks, and I've talked about it. The European Central Bank, the Federal Reserve, the World Bank, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. And like I've alluded to before, it's not only bankers in this ancient net of power. there are key influencers in this network, right? In the public and private sector, they'll sabotage here, they'll build up here, right? This is what happens. It's not just a decree. Okay, interest rates go up. There's a little bit of sabotage. There are deals here. There are betrayals. Read Confessions of an Economic Hitman by John Perkins. I hope that is the right name. It's been a while. Confessions of an Economic Hitman for sure is the title. So what I'm saying is, it's not the Inflation Reduction Act that caused the recession. It's not even the pandemic itself that made the supply chain breakdown. That is an incorrect view. You're short on the view. There's more background knowledge. There are more factors to consider that describe the whole event. There's a catalyst here. What happened is, it's the timing and the agenda that made the pandemic happen. It made the economic decline happen. That was predetermined ahead of time. And what was also predetermined is today's circus-like political climate. What this political scenario with Biden and Trump and Harris, it's just a justification so that people can project all of their frustration and all of their dissatisfaction on someone from both sides. You have a character to project all of your frustration on. The only reason it exists is so that people wouldn't notice, why did our world just fall apart and slip right through our fingers? Why can't we order things anymore and have them get there undamaged? Why can't we get a customer service person on the phone, right? Why can't we go to a restaurant anymore and see a building full of people? And again, it's just projection, and I started reading 1984, so it's just like the 2 Minutes of Hate, first chapter of 1984. They have the 2 Minutes of Hate, where they put up this face of this guy who was like the enemy. He is like, think of like Kim Jong-un, like this kind of guy who's just represents everything that we hate. His name is Emmanuel Goldman. Of course, he's a Jewish guy. And this is what we have now. We have, it's interesting that Trump is known for being orange, right? He's known for being orange, and what else is he known for? He's known for being rich. Trump is Emmanuel Goldman. By the way, a guy who's very pro-Israel, right? So he's not Jewish, but he's like a Jewish guy. He's like a rich Jewish guy. So many people hate him because of that. Because, he's made money. Like, why does he, he has this and everything, but he doesn't. He, of course, acts like a clown, right? He does. Gotta say, even if his policies are good, he acts like a clown. So there it is. It's like putting this person up on the screen and everybody projects the hate onto them, but what it really represents is the unconscious self. But that's for a different channel, right? I'm not gonna go into that. But the point is, now on the other half, you have Kamala and Biden, who we can project all of our frustration on. This guy ruined the economy. No, he didn't. And Donald Trump won't tell you that, how this was predetermined years ahead of time, because this boom-bust cycle of economics is a puppet on a string of these ancestral economic dictators, controllers, and decision makers. Which means that the low gas prices and the general productive optimism from 26 to 2020 when he was in office, it was not a result of Donald Trump's policies, but more so, his policies were a reflection of what was decided to occur in those years. The green light was given to loosen the valves just a little bit. Because when we have good economic times, it's not, the government never does anything. It's just when the valve is loosened up. It's never like a brilliant idea. It's just, okay, we're gonna beat them less, and then the economy, and then we got wealth and happiness, right? So that happened. They opened the valve a little bit, and then they cranked it shut in 2019, 2020, like never before, and that was the pandemic. That's how that goes. It's so hard for people to not get caught up in this movie. Step out of the movie. See the story playing out. And now Trump's entire presidency, impeachment, trial, assassination attempt, and now his second presidency, it's all a story to captivate the general public for 12 years, heading into the fulfillment of UN Agenda 2030. That's the point here. And it's really going to captivate 12 years because 4 years he was president. People were caught up there. Things were, okay, not so bad. Then we've had 4 years of him being persecuted. There was the whole dispute over elections, still in the public eye, right? Still prominent. Now he's a candidate. Now he's going to be prominent again because he's going to win. And if for any reason, I always say elections are not determined. They're up in the air. It depends where the people are. The people do decide this. But whatever they decide, it's just going to, in a roundabout way. It's like a good martial artist. Wherever you lean to your power hand, he's going to roll with you. And he's going to take you down wherever you swing. Because he can, they're skilled in every format. They're skilled in every single aspect of life. This is the kind of fight we're in, right? So whether he wins or not, he's going to be in the public view for another 4 years. It's going to make it 12 years that you guys have just been bamboozled, captivated, awed, right? You're in this haze. You're like a junkie. You're in a haze. Let it go. Before you know it, he will fade away, or he won't fade away. You'll be like QAnon, and you'll still think that he behind the scenes will come back like Obi-Wan in Star Wars, as a ghost, as a hologram, and somehow defeat the big evil empire. It's not gonna happen. You'll just have wasted your time. Now, Donald Trump, to what degree he understands that, I honestly don't know. Right? I don't actually know what's in his heart. I don't know to what degree he knows what role he's playing in this agenda. I don't, but I know for sure that all of these anti-mainstream figures in the spotlight, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Joe Rogan, Alex Jones, I'm not saying they're all agents. They will all, one way or another, they're all going to stop short of talking about the big picture really, and the big picture of the theatrical nature of politics. That's the big deal here, the way it's theater. Theatrical nature of politics. They'll never talk about it. Now, back to slam dunking on Kamala and the communism, right? This is a quote from an article that I had to pull here because it makes a point for me. It's hard to get down an aisle in the grocery store without finding an example of price gouging or price fixing, and it's costing us dearly, said Lindsay Owens, executive director of the Groundwork Collaborative, a left-leaning think tank. It's wonderful to see the vice president unleash a suite of policy proposals to crack down on these cheaters and protect Americans' pocketbooks. I wanted you guys to read that to hear what the phrasing sounds like. By the way, when we say Groundwork Collaborative, anything that's grassroots, ground level, it means populism, which means socialism. This is a communist think tank, not a left-leaning think tank, a communist one. And I mean, what's it called? It's this kind of progressive socialism, right? It's not outright communism. It's wonderful to see the vice president unleash a suite of crack down on cheaters and protect Americans' pocketbooks. Okay, so I'm hearing this phrasing that's very juvenile. Unfair, cheaters, right? Then they say more serious words like illegal. Protect Americans' pocketbooks. So this is appealing to a very primitive and a very childish, kind of primordial, emotional area where people just feel like life's just not fair. These people have all that. We know it's not fair. It's the kind of feeling of like being done wrong and unfairness. This is what they're appealing to now. Now, I have to always take it back to reality, right? Because I'm not discounting emotions or irrationality. But if we're talking, we got to talk rational now. If we're going to talk about decisions that have to be made, decisions have to be made on rational principles. They could be motivated by irrational emotion, but they have to be based in reason. So making your products that you sell expensive is not price fixing. Conspiring and colluding is price fixing. And I don't even think that's a crime. Companies are supposed to make as much money as possible. That's the whole point. The problem is not that they price gouge and price fix. The problem with this economic unfairness and really injustice, you'll never hear them say injustice, right? They say social justice. But don't say unfair, don't say cheaters. They're, these people are thieves, and it's injustice that's going on. And I'm not talking about the corporations. The injustice is with government regulation. It shrinks and limits competition to such a degree that collusion can actually work. In a free market, collusion doesn't work. There would be no payoff for 100 corporations to all get together with each other and spend all that time to increase everybody's prices just to choke the consumers. Because one of them, you would never get that kind of a cohesion. It's like getting the whole world to agree on a song or a color. It's not going to happen if there are 100 companies and they all compete freely. But if there are only 2 or 3 companies in a market, then it makes sense. Then they can collude, and they do. But that's not even what's increasing prices, right? It's a misattribution of the problem. What's increasing prices is that it costs these companies more to get the same resources, including competent labor. So their price is actually roughly the same. They're not price gouging. Their price is kind of the same. What you're seeing on the price tag is it costs more. It costs you more because it costs them more. Now, who doesn't it cost? Who's not paying any extra? That's the ultimate beneficiary of all our work and even these companies' work. Don't think that big corporations are your enslavers. They're not. They're much closer to you than you realize. They're also being choked and squeezed. The ultimate beneficiary of this, who does no work and gets all of the profit, is the banks, the government, etc. Okay? Central banks, I mean, not Chase. You know? So what are some of these plans? $25,000 to help first-time homeowners with their down payments. $6,000 child tax credit. That costs a lot of money. It'll add up, but it doesn't even help these people. What it does is it tethers these people to the system. It ties them to government. Because it makes it more feasible for people to pursue things that they cannot actually afford, right? But they can get you to buy the first one, but they can't actually afford it, really, with their lifestyle. And even if they can't afford it, they're going to certainly need all of the government assistance they can get. That's why they do that. Kamala Harris also promised to work towards construction of 3 million new homes to end the housing shortage within a 4-year time frame. This I wanted to touch on because it's one of those things that people don't talk about, because it's, again, this influence is not all of it is loud, not all of it is in the headlines. It's just little sabotage, little breaks in everyday life, little things, you know, like if this little knob on the microphone didn't work and somebody sabotaged it, no one would ever notice that. But over time, when I have little things breaking down on me, I'm no longer able to communicate. That is indeed what is happening. That's not paranoia. Okay, that's not suspicion. That is stated outright methodology of, I keep forgetting the term, but this kind of incremental socialism, okay? Fabian socialism, that's what it is, okay? It was doing my head in to not remember that. So, housing shortage, there's not a housing shortage. The housing shortage is not the issue. The issue is you've got a shortage of materials. You cannot get materials to build houses, and then what's more important is to maintain them, remodel them. Okay, I'm a project leader for a construction company in Chicago, right, in the Chicagoland area. I spoke to somebody at a lumber supplier, one of the main lumber suppliers in the Chicagoland area, and they told me we needed to buy a lot of cedar, right, cedar wood. And the way it is with cedar, they told me we used to get, before the pandemic, we used to get 2 trucks a week. 2 trucks a week of cedar. Now they get 1 to 2 trucks a month. 2, if that, or 1. Now, 2 things about that. Now, why? Why is that happening? Well, he mentioned, well, a lot of people say it comes from, the United States and all this, but it's like, but it comes from Canada. He told me a lot of this lumber comes from Canada, and that is a fact. You could look that up. And of course, around that time and later, we had the Canadian wildfires. We not only had lockdowns, we had the wildfires that burned down a whole lot of this land and essentially made these lumber mills close down, and it shut those operations down because of a natural disaster. But now think about a natural disaster. Like, look, a wildfire is very close to arson, right? You could set that fire very easily, and that's what I'm talking about by sabotage. These kind of things happened. It was not an accident. I'm not even talking about Maui and the Hawaii wildfires. The stuff in Canada, the atmospheric conditions were right for it, and it's very hard. Nobody even needed to light the match and drop it. Nobody even needed to start the fire. You recreate the atmospheric conditions with geoengineering. Have I not talked about geoengineering here? If I say blank trails, then they'll put a fact-checking label on my video saying that that's not factual. But geoengineering is factual. I have the document. Not to be like Alex Jones, right? I've talked about that. So one thing is the causes, right? Important. This is how it happens. This is an example that I wouldn't have known because nobody thinks about this, but because my work has to do with this, I heard from somebody on Insight how it happens, and this guy has no idea. He has no idea that this is actually done by someone. You have to understand the totality, and this is the way the world actually is controlled. People don't believe that an inner circle can exist because they think there's no way that they could hide it, but this is how it goes. It's just a little sabotage, a little subterfuge here and there, and hey, that's Fabian socialism. That's always been the plan for hundreds and hundreds of years. Now, one more thing I wanted to say about the cedar. I don't want to let it go. It's significant. I want to give myself some time to consider this, and I'm not going to edit the video because I don't have time. I'm doing an interview later today, so. Okay, we'll continue. What happened on August 2nd is we had the Federal Trade Commission and the Department of Justice virtually co-hosted the first public meeting on the strike force on unfair and illegal pricing to discuss its enforcement actions taken to lower prices for U.S. consumers. Did you guys know that? Did you guys know that that actually happened? You know? In March 2024, I'm still trying to remember the cedar, okay? That's what I'm talking about. That's okay. It's alright. I put this together last night. It's not that substantial. In March 2024, at the 6th meeting of the White House Competition Council, President Joe Biden announced the launch of a strike force to strengthen interagency efforts to root out and stop illegal corporate behavior that hikes prices on U.S. families through anti-competitive, unfair, deceptive, or fraudulent business practices. Again, anti-competitive, unfair, deceptive, this is all, it's not fair, you know, this is this kind of language that doesn't get anything done, but you have this now, so, you know, getting into price controls where we're close, we're close to the price controls already, you know. So, of course, this task force, I'm not going to spend too much time on them. They start with the low-hanging fruit. What I mean is like if you let a crazy possessive girl move in with you, she's going to start out slow, right? She's going to put a good face on. She's going to make some food for you. She's going to clean the place up, maybe just put in one decoration or two, right? And then over time, she's going to start rearranging the whole place, right? She's going to start changing up your life, rearranging, looking through your phone, who you should and shouldn't spend time with, why you're doing that, because ultimately she wants to see and control every little thing you do. Okay, that's what this task force does. It's all incremental, as I've said. So now this task force is starting with jail phone calls costing so much and charging all these fees. So it sounds like they're doing a good job. I've talked about the United Nations being the same. Obviously, these jails are predatory. These people are literally in a cage. They're going to pay anything to talk to their family, so why not charge them anything? You know, I know that happens. Airline fees, event ticket merchants, we all know they overcharge, right? So nobody's complaining about that. And they list about 8 of these things that the task force address. Only one of them for me is to be taken seriously, and it gives a glimpse into their real intentions in the future. So here it is. USDA Secretary Xochitl Torres Small highlighted the, I think his name is Xochitl Torres, I think small might be a font. He highlighted the all of USDA approach to tackling food and agricultural pricing challenges for farmers and consumers alike, including an ongoing investigative study on retail concentration and market practices, as well as landmark efforts to modernize the Packers and Stockyards Act rulebook and build a competition partnership with the state's attorneys general. In other words, it's building the infrastructure for nationalizing food prices. Here we go. This is it. You're seeing the beginning of Marxism in America. They scoffed at Stalin and Gramsci's quotes, and here it is coming to fruition, right? What is a competition partnership? It means that they're going to have them by the neck. If you make above a certain amount of profits, they're going to put these and these regulations, and there will be no movement in the market. They will be completely bottlenecked and held down right there to make sure that the government has no competitors. Because ultimately, what creates freedom is freedom and power, which is wealth. It's the kind of that's how we're living in the current society. I'm not saying wealth is in essence a measure of human freedom, but at our current stage in our development as a society, how much money you have is essentially how much freedom you have, especially as far as the government is concerned. Because if you have more than them, then you don't need them, because that is where the value system is, right? So if people value what you say over what they say, then they'll choose you. They'll choose you over these tyrants and these controllers, right? These crazy psycho girlfriends, right, that want to control everything. The thing with the cedar shortages and the material shortages is you cannot pinpoint that on anybody. You cannot place the blame on anybody. It just happens, and no one ever notices it. This is how things go. This is how it's going to go. And you can read Atlas Shrugged, right? You could read Fountainhead. You could read 1984. People have said this is how it happens, and this is how it happens in socialist nations. And I remembered it. Finally, success, triumphant story. I remember what I was trying to remember about the cedar. I talked about the lumber supplier. He told me about how his boss, he tries to be a good guy. He tries to give everybody basically a fair chance to buy the lumber. So what he's saying is that now, because there is such a shortage, when that truck comes in, a lot of people want this wood. So then, of course, there's the selection. Well, now, what wood has the knots, right? Which is the good quality wood that you can use? That's, it's going to cost the same, but one is worth more than the other because of the quality of the material itself. So he's describing now the people he knows, right? Obviously, someone you want to give them first crack, right? You want to give them first chance. You're going to have preferential treatment to the people you know, and that's exactly what the Soviet Union was like. I come from this land. I heard about this. How it is that you had to know somebody. It's not about how much money you had. You had to know somebody. You had to have the right connections, and that means that you are on the chain. Your neck is tied down. You're on the noose, because you have to be in the social circle. If you don't know the right people, you don't get the food. You don't get the things you need. You don't get to keep the lights on, even if you do productive work that earns you money. It's messing with the value system. It's even worse. People think money is so bad. This is worse than money. This is worse than money, because it's totally switching the value system. It's bringing it down a few levels from how much you can produce in a physical sense, which I'm not even saying is the ultimate measure of value. It's down to how subservient and obedient you are to the status quo, to the social dictator, the hierarchy without a central point, right? The cult without a name, as Mark Passio says it. There you go. That's what I wanted to say. You're already getting socialist, not outright policy, but a socialist lifestyle. The way you used to say it in Poland is not that you go buy something, you go figure it out, you go get it. Somehow you make it happen, right? Because you have to talk to somebody, you have to do them a favor. It's all about doing favors. Again, read Atlas Shrugged. This is all, talked about. So here's the main point, though, that nobody else is making or emphasizing. If Donald Trump gets elected, he's going to wipe out this task force, right? He's going to laugh at the price controls. He's going to laugh at Kamala, and everybody's going to breathe a sigh of relief. However, that will do nothing to get rid of the danger, because there's no fundamental philosophy being put forward. We need the slam dunk. Where's the slam dunk? The memorable triumph. Aha, like this is what happens. This is why he won and she lost. And what I mean by that is, like, where is the socialism coming from? What is its root? Why has it conquered the world, with the exception of the United States? I've answered that question over the course of 89 episodes. Trump hasn't. He puts it on the Democrat Party, which is a joke. It's a joke to say that. His enemy always shifts. You notice with these people, not just him, okay? Again, it's not personal. With politicians and, just people, even like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, like there's people who are influencers of people and make speeches. You see their enemy will change over time based on what the people feel, what the collective feel is, right? So it was Obama and Hillary, right? Then it was the deep state, fake news. Now it's all about China and the Democrat Party, China and Mexico now, right? So while your boy does Home Alone 6 in the White House, in that time period, all the disappointed masses, all the disillusioned liberals, especially the young women, they're going to remember Kamala, and they're going to remember how she was done wrong, how she lost, how she said all these things, and she lost to this guy who was a pig, right? And these ideas that she's putting out now, it's not that she wins and implements it. It's much more so effective if they resonate and germinate in their heads, right? They're going to circulate and settle in. And when these women are a few years older now and having children, that'll be around the time in 4 or 8 years or whatever, where the rebound Democrat candidate is going to come back. They're going to come back talking about price controls and about even more socialism. And what's going to happen in that time, because of the groundwork laid, and the fact that, you're going to kind of get a right-wing swing just for a little bit. What's going to happen when that rebound happens is you're going to have so much support for this socialism among the new population base. That's the game. That's the long-term game. That's the plot that is being unveiled here. Okay? The advance of tyranny, it's like quicksand. You push it away for a little bit, right? You get your arms out, you push it away, but you're still submerged. You still have no solid thing to grab onto. You're not holding onto anything solid. Solid ground, or like a branch, something, is its philosophy, its principles, and its historical perspective. And unfortunately, people, just like in their personal lives, they're willing to pull the covers over their eyes and pretend that the threat is over just because they can't see it. They pretend it's over even when the threat was never addressed. This is how it goes. Just like addicts, right? Just like people who are stuck in abusive relationships think it's going to get better. People who are addicts and have all these problems, they just are willing to dull it just for a moment to escape the looming, monster that they have to deal with, the psychological things they have to deal with. People do the same. I got angry last episode. Okay, comments are on, by the way. I put comments on because someone mentioned it, that hey, getting angry at these people is not going to it's not going to solve anything. It's not going to get them to change. I do want people to change. I'm trying to do it through example, through inspiration. um, yeah, and I'm gonna be myself. I'm not gonna be rigid, right? I'm gonna be malleable. I'm not this guy preaching to anybody. But look, this shit is rock solid, if I may say so. It's like such a big gap between me and other commentators, I feel like. But maybe I need to listen to more of them. Maybe I need to get in touch with people and have more conversations, right? I don't want to get in this kind of state where I'm so proud of my work and then I see everyone else as separate, because I feel like you can get into that kind of zone. And I think just people who are not content creators, now I'm talking about just people watching this, who you guys know the truth, you guys know a lot of stuff. I feel like this kind of knowledge can get you into a distance between you and the rest of the world, right? Like, all these people, they're so dumb, this is what we think, right? Like, they don't understand this, why don't they get this? And really it screws us over, because we do need connection with people and we need to be in touch with them. So this kind of a superiority complex is actually will be a great failure for us, right? We can't sit there on the mountaintop and think that everybody else has to catch up to us. That's not the thing. You gotta kind of go shoulder to shoulder with people, and not just talk to them, but listen to them. Listening is part of this. So I think that's a good conclusion to that. I'm not as heartless as it sounds sometimes, guys. So sometimes I even let loose and buy some big corporate Starbucks coffee. And their prices are high, but it's a couple dollars. Like, put it in perspective. Yeah, it's a couple dollars over gas. It's $20-$30 here. Let's really address the real issue. I'll pay some extra money, at my rent. My rent was just raised to, it doesn't matter how much. Don't blame your landlord. It's not their fault, right? It's not their fault. Let's direct our energy where it needs to be directed, right? Direct our good energy to where it needs to be, and our destructive energy towards the things that need to be destroyed, right? That's always been the plan, but it's hard to do so because, yeah, we're living in a world where everything's upside down, right? So there you go. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next week on This Week in Tyranny.